Hello and welcome back to the Wasteland, everybody. Welcome back to New Vegas, where today we're going to be taking a look at various bugged perks in New Vegas. Recently I made a video on deceptively bad perks, or maybe not bad perks, but deceptive perks in and of what they do, and we did talk about a few bugged perks in that video. So today we're going to be going through all of the various perks and all the bugs for them, and at first when I was putting this video together, I was thinking, there's probably won't be that many perks, you know, I kind of know the major ones. There's going to be like 10 to 15 perks that I talked about. No, there's a bit more than that. That's not even the full page. There's still another half page after that of various bugged perks and how they are bugged. Some of these actually have multiple bugs, and some of these are kind of bugged in a good way. So let's start at the very beginning, and we'll just go down the list. Our very first one is Friend of Night. So Friend of Night is a level 2 perk that requires 6 perception and 30 sneak. And this makes it so whenever you are in a low light condition, then it makes it so you can see better. Now this perk isn't really that good, because there is a chem in this game that's called Cat Eye that kind of does the same thing, as well as there is some other gear that helps out with this. And the way that Friend of Night is bugged is actually that it doesn't work in 2 of the DLCs. It doesn't work in Dead Money and it doesn't work in Honest Hearts for some reason. I don't know why that is. You probably won't need it in Honest Hearts because it's pretty well lit, and maybe that's the reason why it's bugged. And in Dead Money, I'm assuming just because it's always supposed to be dark, so it might always be on. But yeah, it doesn't work in either of those. It also has its own slight bug, I guess, is what it says, where it doesn't work in combination with the Varmint Rifle's night vision scope. I don't know how that works because I never end up taking this perk, but this perk is bugged for those reasons. I don't think this is a huge bug though. I don't think this is a huge deal. Maybe in Dead Money this would be kind of nice because you could potentially see traps a little bit easier, or it might make it so your gamma is so bad that you can't see. So Friend of Night being bugged I don't think is a huge deal. Then we have Heave Ho. Heave Ho is another level 2 perk that requires 5 strength and 30 explosives. This is actually one of the good bugged perks, or I guess a perk that doesn't tell you everything that it affects, since this makes it so thrown weapons have 50% more velocity, so they get to their target much faster. Now, there's not a whole lot of thrown weapons in New Vegas. Actually, there is more so than some of the other games, where this can include like dynamite, frag grenades, throwing axes, throwing spears, things like that. However, Heave Ho also affects all explosively lobbed weapons, because that also counts as thrown for some reason. So this does affect things like the Fat Man, it does affect things like the grenade rifles, or the heavy incinerator. It actually affects more items than what you would think, and it's really good on an explosives build. On a melee build, it's okay, but explosives build is generally where Heave Ho gets better. So this is a bugged perk that's actually really good. Our next one is Rapid Reload, which is another level 2 perk. This one requires 5 agility and 30 guns in order to use, and this one makes it so that you can reload 25% faster than you normally would. This one is bugged in kind of a weird way, because this one's only sort of bugged, where you do get the faster reload speed. However, if you load an old save with Rapid Reload, then the reload speed will actually work in reverse, where it doesn't give you plus 25% reload speed, it gives you minus 25% reload speed. This can be fixed though if you just swap off of that weapon and then swap back to it. It will then be fixed and go right back to the normal amount. I don't know why this is, but that is just a bug that is known about Rapid Reload. That one's not a huge bug, but it is something to keep in mind. Our next perk is Fortune Finder. This is a level 6 perk that requires 5 luck, and this makes it so that you can find more bottle caps in stockpiles. This one isn't necessarily bugged, but it does have another function, where this also counts towards Dead Money casino tokens as well. So this one's bugged in a good way, or it just doesn't tell you what it does in a good way. Our next one is the Professional. The Professional is another level 6 perk, and the Professional requires 70 sneak in order to get. This one makes it so all of your sneak attack crits with revolvers, pistols, and submachine guns inflict an additional 25% more damage. This one is bugged in a way where it actually affects all crits, not just sneak crits with those one-handed weapons. So revolvers, pistols, and submachine guns will just get more crit damage overall thanks to this. It also is bugged in that it doesn't work with that gun specifically. I don't know why that is, because that's in the base game, and you would think it would work normally, but it doesn't. It also doesn't work with the police pistol either, for some odd reason. I don't know why, even though that one's also a revolver. Up next we have Vigilant Recycler, which you can get at level 6, and this one requires 70 science. This is the one that allows you to craft different energy cells, so you can craft like the optimized cells for all of your things. The bug with this one is that sometimes it locks your crafting list after you've taken the perk. I've never experienced this, but apparently it's a bug that can happen, where if you get a schematic or you get more recipes, it actually locks it to where you no longer get those recipes. I've never seen this happen, although usually I get this perk late, and by the time I've gotten it late, I've probably gotten the other crafting perks, so maybe it did affect me, but I just didn't notice it. Next up is Cowboy. This one's a level 8 perk that requires 45 guns and 45 melee. This one gives you 25% more damage with all Cowboy weapons, so revolver, revolvers, lever actions, dynamite, all that sort of stuff. However, this doesn't work for the police pistol, oddly enough, even though that one is a revolver, and this does affect weapons like that gun and the 223 pistol, or the 556 pistol in this case. For some reason, this just doesn't like the police pistol. Up next is the Living Anatomy. This is another level 8 perk that requires 70 medicine, and this one makes it so that you can see enemies' health as well as their damage threshold, so you can see how much armor they have. And you also get 5% bonus damage towards all living enemies. Now this one does work as intended, it just doesn't show the correct amount whenever you have a weapon equipped, because it just counts you as always having plus 5% more damage to any weapon that you have equipped. So it has higher damage than it otherwise should. This isn't really a big deal, this is just a visual thing, and this is accounting for the maximum amount of damage that your weapon can do, rather than the potential amount of damage that you're going to do. Like if you shoot a robot, you're not actually going to have that extra 5% damage towards them. Quick Draw is a level 8 perk that requires 5 agility, and this one makes it so that you can draw and holster your weapon 25% faster. This one actually has a couple different bugs, but the main bug that this one has is that it has the same sort of bug that Rapid Reload has, where normally you would pull out your weapon 25% faster and put it away 25% faster. If you load a save, sometimes it just gives you negative 25% speed of drawing your weapon and holstering your weapon. Why that is, I don't know. It has to be some sort of bug in the code, same way Rapid Reload is coded. And for some reason, the values can just switch, and I don't know why that is. Aside from that, Quick Draw also has some other bugs in it, where sometimes it can just not put away your weapon, or keep your weapon out longer than you want it to, or sometimes it can kind of crash the game too, apparently. I've never experienced any of those bugs, but I have experienced the slower draw speed and the slower holster speed. Stonewall is also bugged at level 8. This one requires 6 strength and 6 endurance, and this gives you plus 5 damage threshold towards melee and unarmed attacks, and it also makes it so you can't be knocked down by attacks. That is all accurate. This one is another purely visual bug, where this one will just give you plus 5 damage threshold if you check your stats. So it will count as it always being attacked by melee or unarmed, at least visually, not how it actually affects your character. Super Slam also can be bugged, which I've never experienced this, but this is a level 8 perk that requires 6 strength and 45 melee weapons to get. This is the one that allows you to knock down enemies with melee weapons or unarmed weapons. You have a higher chance of knocking them down with two-handed weapons than one-handed weapons, and sometimes this just gets bugged and doesn't work for DLC unarmed weapons specifically. I've never experienced this. It seems to always work when I have like the Fist of Roron or the Superheated Saturnite Fist. I've never had this one, but apparently it is a bug that can happen. We also have Here and Now being bugged, where Here and Now is a level 10 perk that doesn't require any sort of extra points whatsoever in any stat. This one allows you to level up once. Sometimes this gets bugged and doesn't allow you to level up at all just from taking it, which is honestly kind of a bonus for this, because this perk is pretty useless in general. I would not recommend that you take Here and Now, and if you do take it, it's kind of a wasted perk anyway, so having it not work doesn't really affect how useful it is. I guess it makes it worse, but it's already really bad. Then we've got Animal Friend. Animal Friend isn't really bugged, but it doesn't work exactly how it's said to work. So this is a level 10 perk that requires 6 charisma and 45 survival, and this one allows you to befriend animals, or animals won't attack you. And this does cover quite a few different animals, but it doesn't cover all animals, because lake larks are technically considered animals, but they are unaffected by this, and fire geckos are considered animals, but they are not affected by this either, so they will still attack you on sight. However, night stalkers will not attack you. Even though they're not considered animals, they are considered abominations. So this perk just works a little bit differently than what it shows, and it can be kind of more useful, especially if you're going to go to Old World Blues, because large sections of that DLC have a lot of Night Stalkers, and you can just walk right through them without having to worry about them attacking you. Up next, we've kind of got a twofer between Mysterious Stranger and Misfortune. So Misfortune is a level 10 perk that you need 6 luck for, and Mysterious Stranger is also a level 10 perk that you also need 6 luck for. These ones give you a 10% chance of triggering Misfortune of the Mysterious Stranger to finish off your opponent in VATS. There's just a chance that one of them or both of them can show up at the same time. It's not a bug to get both of them, since they both equally have a chance of showing up. However, there is a lot of bugs with these. Sometimes it will completely crash the game when these ones show up, and it can cause crashes more often, so that's kind of a downside. Sometimes they will get stuck and not fight the enemies, and this will lock you into VATS. Sometimes they just refuse to attack enemies, and you will then have to shoot them anyway in VATS. And sometimes this can slow down your VATS. And sometimes if you kill an enemy right as they show up in VATS, sometimes this can also sort of lock the game for a second. It usually doesn't crash it, but it still can. So there's a lot of bugs with these two perks, just potentially crashing your game. They are very fun perks to take, but if your game is crashing pretty often, you probably don't want to have these on your character. Next perk is Mr. Sandman. This is a level 10 perk that requires 60 sneak, and this one allows you to assassinate enemies while they're sleeping. These are only humanoid enemies as they're sleeping. You can't kill animals and stuff with it. This one is bugged in a couple different ways, usually in animations, to where you will try to initiate Mr. Sandman, and sometimes enemies will be triggered and attack you regardless, so you can't do it. Sometimes you'll get animation stuck, so you might have to wait longer to load, or this might result in a soft lock of the game for a moment until you load, as well as sometimes when you kill enemies, they can fall through the floor and you can't get their gear. I don't know what causes this, but yeah, Mr. Sandman has a couple issues there with how it functions. Hit the Deck also has a visual bug similar to Stonewall that we talked about not too long ago. Hit the Deck is a level 12 perk that requires 70 explosives, and this gives you plus 25 damage threshold towards explosives, your explosives, and enemy explosives. It's a really solid perk, but as soon as you have an explosive weapon equipped, then it will automatically show a plus 25 to whatever your damage threshold actually is, which is kind of true, but may not actually affect you. It still affects explosives normally. It's just another one of those visual bugs. Lifegiver is also kind of bugged. This is a level 12 perk that requires 6 endurance, and this gives you plus 30 more HP. It's usually a pretty decent perk to have because more HP is good. However, this is bugged with the Ferocious Loyalty perk in combination to where it doesn't give companions extra health. It will still give you extra health though, so it's just kind of like an added effect that isn't calculated once it's going for that perk. Pyromaniac is another level 12 perk that requires 60 explosives. This one gives you 50% more damage for all fire-based weapons. However, there are quite a few fire-based weapons that are bugged and aren't affected by this. So this doesn't affect incendiary ammunition at all or incendiary grenades at all. Even though certain weapons like the shish kebab are affected by this, they don't actually get additional burning damage, so damage over time effect from this. This also doesn't affect weapons like the incendiary grenade or the firebomb, and it also doesn't affect the cosmetic knife superheated. So there is a couple of fire weapons that this one just doesn't affect. It does affect, luckily, some pretty strong ones though, like the shish kebab and like the superheated Saturnite fist, so there are some pretty decent weapons there, but it doesn't affect all the weapons that it probably should, in my opinion. Robotics Expert is another level 12 perk that requires 50 science, and this one gives you 25% more damage towards robots and allows you to shut off robots. The bug with this one is that sometimes if you deactivate a robot or destroy a robot, reload a save and come back, the robot will be bugged and not have its limbs. I've never had this happen, but apparently that is a bug that can happen with this one. Splash damage is up next. This one's another level 12 perk, and this requires 70 explosives. This gives you a 25% bigger explosion radius. Now this one actually works as intended. The bug is that it's actually bugged in the code, so it doesn't have a value placed with it, which is a little bit strange. I don't know how it works then, but apparently it still works in-game as intended. So this one's just kind of one of those weird ones where the coding is kind of off, but it doesn't actually affect the game or the perk in any way. Chemist is a level 14 perk that requires 60 science. This one isn't really bugged, but it has more effects than what people believe it does. So I kind of wanted to include this one here too. Chemist naturally gives you 50% more duration on any of your chems, which is really good, that's really strong. But this also affects other things other than your chems. This affects consumables, like eating food. This actually will heal you more over time, which is really good, and give you longer lasting effects from eating food. This one also affects magazines, so magazines last longer than they otherwise would, and stealth boys last longer than they would, even though those aren't considered chems either. So Chemist is actually even stronger than it already is, and it's already really strong. Paralyzing Palm is up next. Paralyzing Palm is a level 18 perk that requires 70 unarmed, and this one makes it so whenever you hit an enemy with unarmed in VATS, then there's a chance that you stun them for 30 seconds, or paralyze them for 30 seconds. This one's a really strong perk, and it generally works as intended. It's just that the bug with this one is that sometimes it will just not have a hitbox when you actually hit something to initialize the Paralyzing Palm, so nothing will be paralyzed, as well as sometimes it just doesn't work when it should, like when the game renders it as it had the correct chance of hitting it, sometimes it just refuses to do that, and I think that's based on enemy hitbox, but I could be wrong. Then we have Explorer, which is level 20 perk, doesn't have any other requirements for it, and Explorer makes it so that it maps out all of your maps. You can see all the locations on the map. Problem with this one, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it doesn't actually show anything on the map afterwards. I don't know why that is. I don't think I've ever had that problem. However, I don't take Explorer because I know where all the locations are on the map because I played this game so much. So that would kind of suck if you grab that. It's also apparently bugged, sort of bugged, if you do the exploit where you can get to a much higher level in Good Springs and then re-roll your character to actually get a bunch more perks than you otherwise would. I have a whole video talking about that and how to actually do it. I wouldn't really recommend you do it, but it is something you can do, and sometimes Explorer will bug out and just not actually show up there as perks that you can take. Why that is, I don't know. Maybe it's just tied to being with only in one location of Good Springs, but I'm not entirely sure. Next, we've got Ninja. Ninja is a level 20 perk that requires 80 sneak and 80 melee weapons, and this one's supposed to give you plus 15% higher crit chance with melee and unarmed, and sneak attacks do an additional 25% more damage. Now, the sneak crit part of this actually still works. That one is not bugged, however, the 15% increased chance of hitting crits is not true. Well, it's not put in correctly, because this isn't 15% chance, it's 1.15% chance. So you have much less of a chance of hitting crits. It still gives you a bonus to hitting crits, but it is far less than 15%. So this one could be really good, and it is a really good perk in Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. It's a very strong perk in 4. In New Vegas, not as much, though. The crit damage is nice, so if you're going with a melee build or an unarmed build, I don't think this is a particularly bad perk to take, but it's not nearly as good as it could be. And then we move on to the DLC perks, where our very first one is In Shining Armor from Dead Money. And we'll kind of be talking about all the Dead Money perks here in a second. So In Shining Armor is a level 2 perk that requires 20 repair and 70 science, meaning that you can't actually unlock it at level 2. It's impossible for you to do that without cheating in extra points to get. So you can't even get this at level 2, weirdly enough. That's not the bug though. The major bug to this one is that it actually doesn't do anything. It's supposed to give you plus 5 damage threshold against energy weapons when wearing metal armor, and an additional plus 2 damage threshold when wearing eyeglasses or shades of any kind against energy weapons. The main problem with this is that it's coded to be energy weapons, and there's no gun in the game that actually does energy weapon damage. There are energy weapons in the game, but they count as doing like laser damage, plasma damage, Gauss damage, and I think the hollow rifle is just called hollow rifle damage, so there's all of those, as well as like flamethrowers are fire damage. Those don't do energy weapon damage, so this does nothing. It actually does nothing. It is the worst perk in the game because it literally does nothing. Even if it did work, I would still argue this perk is pretty bad because you're not fighting energy weapons too often, and you have to wear metal armor, which is downgrade to most heavy armors, so I don't think that this one would be good anyway. Then we move on to Junk Rounds. Junk Rounds is another Dead Money perk. This is level 2 perk that requires 6 luck and 45 repair. This one makes it so you can craft ammunition, a single ammunition, out of scrap metal and tin cans. I've talked about how bad this perk is in the past. It's only kind of decent early on when you want to make like 45, 70, or 50 cal rounds, and that's about it. Aside from that though, it's actually kind of bugged to where it has the correct files to be able to make 22 rounds and 12.7mm rounds, but they're just not in the game. So you can't make those two ammunitions. Not that making a single 22 round or a single 12.7mm round would be that impactful anyway, but it should have been coded into the game, and honestly, this should be a much higher amount that you get whenever you're making these rounds. Dead Money perks as a whole, though, are kind of bugged in that you can keep them on a rebuild. I've also made a video about this. It's the same video I was talking about with the exploits. This one is a minor exploit, in my opinion, to where if you pick any of the level 2 perks from Dead Money, so this is In Shining Armor, Junk Rounds, Light Touch, or Old World Gourmet, then you can keep those if you go to Leave Good Springs and you, say, rebuild your character. If you pick any other level 2 perk or any level 4 perk, these actually won't work this way. Those will be refunded and you'll have to pick them again. The Dead Money perks in particular, though, at level 2 and at level 4 will stay with you. And technically every perk in the game is bugged after that, because any level 6 to level 50 perk also allows you to keep it if you go to reroll in Good Springs, which is why you can have like 50 perks not actually cheating in this. You're using an exploit to do it, and it's going to take you a very long time to do it, but you can do it if you want to have 50 perks in total in New Vegas. I really wouldn't recommend it because it's just not as fun then, but it is something that you can do. Next perk that is bugged is Eye for an Eye. This is a Honest Hearts DLC perk. This one's a level 20 perk that doesn't have any requirements, and what this one does is that every time you have a crippled limb, you get 10% more damage. So you can have up to 60% more damage since you have the head, both your arms, both your legs, and your torso, and if all of those are crippled, then you get plus 60% more damage. This is a very specific bug that works with this one though, and it only works with the German version of Fallout New Vegas for some reason. I wasn't even aware of this, where if all of your limbs are crippled, on the German version, it also gives you another 25% bonus damage on top of that for some reason. So you can have up to 85% more damage Specifically if you pick the German version of the game. Then we've got Them's Good Eating. Them's Good Eating is a level 20 perk that requires 55 survival. This is an Old World Blues perk, and this one makes it so whenever you kill a living creature, you have a 50% chance of getting thin red paste or blood sausage. It is a very good perk overall. However, it is bugged in kind of a funny way, where it can be bugged if you knock out your companions and then search them. They can spawn thin red paste or blood sausage, so you can technically get an infinite amount just from them. Also, if you kill your companions in the hardcore difficulty, they can show up, but that does make a little bit more sense. It's kind of funny that it works on knocked out enemies. It can also work multiple times on the ghost people if you knock them out and then they get back up, because it can spawn multiple sausages and multiple thin red paste whenever they actually go down. I wasn't aware of that. I don't think I've ever noticed this happening, but that is kind of funny that you could sort of exploit this and get even more sausage and thin red paste if you wanted to. Just stand over in the corner and punch Boone until he gives you everything that he's got, I guess. Next, we have Certified Tech. This is a level 40 perk from the Lonesome Road. This one doesn't have any requirements aside from that. And what this one is supposed to do is give you increased crit chance towards robots by 25%. And it also gives you an 85% increase in finding extra components from those robot enemies. The extra finding of components is actually real. That is normal in the game. However, the extra 25% crit chance is not, because this one's bugged like Ninja, where it's not 25% crit chance. I believe it's 2.25% crit chance. So you get much less chance of actually hitting crits with it. It's not really a great perk. The Robotics Expert is better, even though that one we just went over is kind of bugged, but in kind of a weird way. Up next, we've got Ain't Like That Now. This is level 50 perk, where you need to have negative karma in order to get it. And this one makes it so it resets your karma back to 0. You get plus 25% action point regeneration rate, plus 25% attack speed, and immunity to crit hits. All of these do work as intended. However, this one's just kind of coded weird to where it makes it so your action point regen rate counts even if you're not using VATS. However, in the code, I think it was that if you're using VATS, so this one's just another weird coding bug that actually doesn't affect the perk at all. I'm not entirely sure if I read that correctly, but there's something there, and it doesn't really matter. You're not going to be using action points outside of VATS, so it doesn't really matter if it affects your VAT points while you're not using them. Maybe if you have mods, like I know there's a mod to make it so you can use action points to run, similar to how you can in Fallout 4, but I don't even know if it would affect it then, because it might actually fix it through that mod too. And then the very last perk we have is Thought You Died. This is the level 50 perk, where you need to have good or very good karma in order to get this perk, and this one gives you plus 10% more damage, plus 10 more HP per 100 karma points that you get. Karma is reset back to neutral, and you're immune to crit hits. The bug with this one is that it doesn't give you extra healing if you're at the normal amount of hit points that you would be, not counting the extra karma hit points bonus. So then you'll heal normally through that. So if you add like an additional plus 5 to your healing or something of something that you're eating, you're not going to get that extra plus 5 when you're eating things. However, you will still get healed for the base amount of the food or item or whatever you're taking to get your health back. You're just not going to be getting quite as much. This will only really affect the top amount of HP that you actually have. So this one's kind of a weird one too. I've never noticed this because it's always an endgame thing, and by that point you probably are sitting at full HP most of the time. But yeah, these are all the various bugged perks in New Vegas, at least level bugged perks. I didn't actually look up if there was any other bugged perks that could be in this too, that are earnable perks, because I know sometimes earnable perks don't show up the way that they should. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of bugs in Fallout. A lot more than I thought in just the perks alone. So hopefully you guys found this kind of interesting. So thank you guys so very much for watching this. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.